Hello everybody, JaffaArchfiend here, and well, Warhammer is going on right now over in Las Vegas, and well, they're showing off a bunch of new stuff. This originally aired about 6 AM here in the UK, so I just finished a midnight shift yesterday, so I was not able to make up for that. So that would be late in the evening over in Vegas, so let's take a look, see at what we've got here. Alright, fast forward a bit.
So this is Hello everybody, you are very welcome here to the Warhammer Preview Online. I am Wade, this is Eddie. Hello Eddie.
Hi Wade, it's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Absolutely is. So this is the first Warhammer Preview Online of 2022. We're absolutely delighted to be here at a slightly unconventional time of day, it's fair to say, for Warhammer Preview Online.
It's pretty early in the morning. I mean, I had to have I had my espresso this morning. I hope you did too, Wade.
Oh yes, a bucket of espresso. It's pretty early for us, but by no means necessarily early for where you are in the world. And as is tradition, we've seen the fine viewership tuning in to let us know where they are and what time it is
I will
where
open
they
the
are
comments
as a
for
new prong to this exploration that we'd like to see. So please let us know as we're getting ready to start revealing some excellent Warhammer
So about
things.
midnight in Chicago,
what
this
are you
aired.
looking forward to seeing
5
today?
PM in
So
Australia.
What is it for you today?
Good Lord.
And we'll start talking about what we're going to be looking.
Pause. So Wisconsin, 12 AM, UK 6 AM, 7 AM for Germany, 10 PM over in Vancouver, Canada, about 3 in the afternoon in Japan. So yeah, this was basically airing at a bunch of different times for a bunch of different people. It was like, oh good Lord.
Looking forward to seeing.
No one
Warhammer
time
Preview
zone's
Online,
ever
'cause
going to
this
fit
is,
everyone,
as the title
really.
suggests, the Las Vegas Open Preview Online, because the Las Vegas Open taking place over in Las Vegas, America. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So Las Vegas Open is running this year. We've got a contingent out there from the official Warhammer events team that are in attendance, and they've just run a Warhammer preview themselves for the people who are in attendance. So some people have already seen some of the cool stuff, but all of you guys tuning in around the world get to see it as well. Me and Wade will walk you through the cool stuff. We've got some pretty tasty things to show you. Yeah, it's going to be a good time.
Yes, those are real banners they've got in the
LVO,
background.
A huge gaming tournament, gaming celebration, and the Warhammer representation is usually there to make sure there's an awesome preview to reveal some new things for people who are die-hard fans of all sorts of Warhammer good stuff. And it's usually a great opportunity. There wasn't a presence, there wasn't an LVO last year, was there?
No, I think like a lot of events last year, the Las Vegas Open was cancelled due to COVID. But I think this year it's great to see loads of events like the Las Vegas Open starting up again. So I think anybody who's into Warhammer gaming, who's been, wanting to roll dice for the past 2 years, is going to get a chance this year. There's loads of great events. Las Vegas Open is traditionally one of the largest Warhammer events of the year. I think it's got maybe...
and I think a lot of people are going to be wanting to get into this now, especially after Henry Cavill recently did interviews with them, in promoting like The Witcher 2 Season 2, mentioning, and has mentioned in previous interviews, his collection of Warhammer. And, well, when Big Man Superman, Geralt, etc. says he plays Warhammer, I mean, Tom Holland, who was on the same panel with him on the Graham Norton show, had no clue what Warhammer was, and then Henry Cavill started talking about it. I was like, oh, do you think I can have a game with it? It's like, yeah, sure. And it's like, ah!
if not the largest, certainly one of the largest Warhammer 40,000 tournaments in the world, which is really cool. So there's thousands of people there at the moment who are getting ready to play some Warhammer games, which is really awesome. And I think as we want to support great events around the world, we want to show up and show them some cool stuff and be in attendance as well. But not everyone can go. There's loads of people there, but
Yeah.
Vegas isn't exactly local to the whole world, so we thought we'd show everyone.
Definitely
the cool
not
stuff we've got
local.
as well.
Yeah.
Where are people tuning in from, Wade? Have we got some places all over?
So this has been correctly identified as the Troke phase of the Warhammer Previews Online, because when Adam Troke is here, you may have noticed Adam Troke, your regular co-host for these sorts of shows, is not here in meat space in the studio with us. He's there in the chat. I can see him in the little chat box, and he likes to warm these shows up by inviting people to let us all know where people are watching from. Some are watching from Texas, some are watching from Moscow. That's in Russia, of course. So it's 6 AM here in Essex. It's the same time zone that we have here in Nottingham. There's all sorts of people from all sorts of places. Thank you very much for tuning in. Raf is keeping an eye on the counter of how many people, hundreds and thousands.
I've got to say, not
tuning
Lee,
in to watch.
you've
Seattle.
been doing an
Someone says
amazing job with
Necromunda. I'm not sure that's true.
No, I think that might have been what they're excited to see rather than where they're tuning in from, because
Yeah.
the internet signal in Necromunda is notoriously poor.
We just don't know. It just says Necromunda. Roma, that's maybe Rome, quite possibly. Alberta, Canada. people just using those kind of American abbreviations for states.
I don't know any of those.
No,
Yeah,
it's just WA. Maybe it's just someone trying to shout WA, but they just got too excited.
Orc fans represented. Nice to
12 p.m. in Mexico. Oregon, Netherlands. Winterpeg. It's like Winnipeg, but in the winter. I get that. I understand that. I can't spend the next hour or so just reading lists of places out, can I?
I don't think so. I'm not sure.
Basically, take a
I think people
map
like to
of the
tell you where
world,
they're from.
throw a
but
dartboard
they're
at it,
probably
and
here
they're
to
probably
see some
watching
cool
from
Warhammer.
there.
But speaking of Warhammer, before we dive into it, Wade, have you been doing any hobby?
A little bit. Yeah, a little bit. I've been trying to pick off some older projects that have been kind of cluttering up my paint station for a little while. I've got a few secret things for the future that we'll probably come back to. It's
a little guilty of that. I've got several
but I was finishing off some objective bases from Warhammer
my own
Blood
collection.
Axes. Bad Company, which made an appearance on the Warhammer community website towards the end of last year. Rocking around in the Octaria sector.
In there. I've got piles in the.
I've got a few things on my painting table at the moment. So I've been doing some custodies as a bit of a palette cleanser between orcs, but there's also a lot of orcs on the painting table as well. So there's 2 kill rigs currently getting painted up, which are bigger models than I expected when I started painting them. They're quite ambitious projects actually, the kill rigs, but very cool. And looking forward to blasting some stuff with some massive green lightning bolts of super hyper psychic death. So that should be fun.
That's very killy.
They're
kill
super
rig is
killy.
quite
Yeah,
killy.
yeah.
Two is very killy.
They're very killy.
Now you are the pioneer of the hashtag Orc in Progress, which is one of my favourite hashtags.
It was just a typo when I first wrote it.
Okay. Work in progress. March for correct. There's a bunch more.
Some people go for Work in Progress Wednesday, but Eddie, sticking to his orcish hobby, goes for hashtag Orc in Progress, and I've nicked it. I'm afraid I've run with that one.
Looting is the highest form of flattery.
Yeah, it's fair to say. Good times, and let us know by all means what kind of hobby have you got on the go. We've been doing our hangout and hobby shows as we often do through the week. We've got another hangout and hobby show later on this evening. We've changed up some of our live streaming to accommodate the fact that our producer Raph will probably be going to sleep a little bit later on. We'll put him into cryostasis because he's been up early with us as well. But there'll be hangout and hobby shows with Peachy rocking around doing some hobby live here on Twitch later on today. We'd like to know what sort of good stuff people are looking forward to seeing, what sort of stuff people are doing while they're watching. If you're doing any hobby while you're watching, caffeinated hobby is often the best hobby. Make sure you don't cut your fingers.
I do all my best hobby in the hours between midnight and 2 in the morning.
As the father of young child.
I mean, that's certainly a factor, but that's mostly where my hobby gets done at the moment. It's like
fair play.
Midnight hobby is pretty much where I'm at. But yeah, if you're doing cool hobby at home, let us know what you're up to. Have you painted any particularly awesome things recently? Are you doing any cool projects? Any great models on the go? It'd be cool to hear what you're up to. You know, we are here to see some cool Warhammer, but we always like to hear what you're up to as well.
Ravenlord19 working on a storm speeder before I start Tau. It's a pretty skimmer-minded hobby altogether. Been tempted to dive head first and buy a Tau-Nar as my first Tau battle.
Oh God!
At the very deep end of the biggest sort of walking, stomping Tau piece of destruction. And Slayer 000 is almost done with 500 points of Blood Ravens. Also fans of looting altogether. There's looting in the air.
Cool.
So yeah, plenty of people doing some good hobby stuff. Magnetising some Death Guard from Captain Magic. Citron Dricker, Blade Champion in white non-metallic metal, and I'm absolutely dying. Painting my evil cat here.
And we have something for you. So
we like all of Warhammer.
We do like all of Warhammer.
Tradition.
We know we're going to see some Warhammer Age of Sigmar. Which,
shall we go and see some of the excitement that was shared from our colleagues and friends over in Las Vegas?
I think so, yeah.
Great stuff. So a video from the team over in Las Vegas just before they started their preview a little while ago.
Eddie and Wade, I am so excited to be bringing you a snippet from the Las Vegas Open. We're back here for the first time after 2 years, getting ready to share an incredible preview with this amazing crowd that you guys can see all behind me.
I knew it was coming, but still, oh lordy.
You guys have a fantastic preview. Hello to the whole Warhammer community. We're so excited. Eddie, Wade, back to you guys.
That looks pretty excellent altogether, doesn't it?
They look like having a lot of fun.
Yeah. So we need the Twitch chat to simulate that excellent reaction that Mike Brandt got from announcing the upcoming LVO preview over in Las Vegas a little while ago. I saw
so if you could all shout woo or wah if you've chosen the best army.
Let's do the chat for this.
There are some woos,
good lordy.
Oohs and ahs, loud noises in block capitals. It's good to see.
That's a lot of woos and a lot of wahs.
That is the sort of feedback that we'd be looking to get.
That's what we live for.
That's what we turn up at 6 o'clock in the morning for. Absolutely. There's a bit of buzz when you do these sorts of previews in front of a live studio audience, so to speak, because you get to see people actually reacting in real time. There's a bit of a delay with the Twitch chat, so I'll keep looking down at the box every now and again just to see how excited people truly are about what's getting revealed and what's getting announced. But yeah, doing these things in
and this is why I've got the chat box closed, because sometimes the chat can get a bit
hobbyists and
iffy depending on what gets announced.
The excitement when these things get revealed is a beautiful thing.
If you ever get a chance to join us for one of our in real life previews, as it were, then do come in a room with.
As a tradition, the format of this sort of show, we'll have videos to show, we'll play the videos, then we've got pictures that will accompany the videos. We can dive into some of the things that get revealed and seen and make sure everybody understands just how excited and why we're that excited when we've revealed these things. So please, Raph, play us our first video.
There we go. For 40k, first of all. Eldar! AKA the Space Elves. Lovely looking models. Oh, they got an update! Nice! Argon Ra. Oh, that looks gorgeous. The Avatar of Cain. Basically the bloody-handed god of murder and war. Divine stone made reality.
Hoorah! They're walking. The Avatar has called. War calls. The Eldari have answered. And we've got a huge Craft Worlds release to look forward to.
Nice. Yeah, so we knew Eldar were on their way. We knew there was lots of cool stuff. We've seen a few of them before.
Scottish Jedi will be happy about this.
We've seen the Guardians, we've seen the Rangers and the jet bikes. We know we're on the way.
Well, used to.
But just confirming a few of the final pieces slotting into place for this fairly sizable release for the Craft Worlds. And you can see very nicely behind us all the forces that are shiny and new in plastic have assembled in that nice battle shot, looking very cool. But let's dive into some of the specific miniatures and get excited about them. So the best kept, I think fair to say, the best kept secret on the internet. The Avatar of Cain is getting a glorious new plastic release. This is replacing a model that has been in circulation for something like 28 years, I think, when we did the maths on it.
Yeah.
A classic miniature, very cool. We had his retirement party earlier on the Warhammer community this week.
Yep.
A glorious new plastic miniature. I think people got a chance to have a look at this guy for the first time yesterday in detail, but let's just take a moment to revel in the pure awesomeness that is a molten god of battle made flesh again. Very, very cool miniature.
He's basically a walking statue of lava and fire
that we recognise and remember from some of the classic black and white artwork from the early 90s that informed all the Jez Goodwin designs of Avatar miniatures that have graced tabletops around the world over the last few decades, but much bigger, it's fair to say, and much more detailed.
Loads of really nice little details on there as well, so you can see all the various aspect shrines represented in his various jewellery. So you've got striker scorpions and reapers and dire avengers, and I think there's even a little warp spider earring he's got there as well, which is quite fun.
Symbols.
But he's got some options in the kit, which is pretty cool. And here are some of the options. We've seen a few of these already, but this is a chance to get a nice, glorious close-up look at them. Loads of really cool stuff. The Wailing Doom, I think, is probably the main thing to call out there. This has always been a weapon that is effectively molten in the hand of the Avatar, which forms to whatever shape it needs to be to chop up whatever foe he happens to be facing. Traditionally, we're used to seeing it as a sword, but we've also in the past seen it as a spear in his epic incarnation. And from Forge World, but he's also got an axe, which is pretty neat as well, which I think you were saying was maybe your favourite, Wade.
I think so, just because of the novelty. It's been described in the background, like the Suindale, the Wailing Doom, the Doom that wails, can take multiple forms, and we've seen it, as you say, as a sword, as a spear, but to see it realised as an axe, and you were observing, looks very much like
the head options.
I'm looking, as if he's like, yes, Dad, that's the sort of axe that I want to go and rock around with. That's my fire axe too.
Yeah, I think all of the Eldar aspects to some extent take their lead from the Avatar of Cain, so they're all taking aspects of him. So the shining spears are inspired by the spear
purely so I can try and combo
the
all the weapons
of the Fire Dragon X arcs and the various different aspects, the skull essence of the Avatar taken up by the warriors of the Dark Reapers. Even things like the one in the centre there with the bare head, quite reminiscent of some of the Drakari look and stuff.
Yeah.
So obviously they've got the origins in the same mythologies, haven't they? It's just all quite fun.
just like an enormous mandrake altogether. And all that, as I understand it, the heads and weapons are all interchangeable. So if you've got a particular favoured helm or head option and weapon option that you don't see there in combination, you can build it that way. Don't you worry.
And you get a spare head to put on your base of Yamani's Calgar. What are you saying, Clive?
Or your Slaneshi Greater Demons, if that's the way your proclivities run. The base as well, the cracked Eldari architecture. We were talking before we went live about the Wraithlord base, one that kind of sculptured Eldari base that's informed an awful lot of the designs that we'll maybe see on some of the other characters and some of the
conversion possibilities are
in the
interesting.
Janzar and the Drazar as well from the Battle Box release a little while ago, seeing that Eldari architecture, because it's built to last. It's fair to say Eldari architecture. It might be cracked, it might be blown up by bolt rounds, but it still is all over the battlefields of the 41st millennium. The Imperium's not been able to completely get rid of it. So to see the Avatar stomping around and the burning skull, that's another nice classic touch from some of the older artwork that we associate.
Yeah, it looks like some of the very original sketches of the Avatar that included that. Nice as well to see the Avatar's kind of full rune on the base there. You can almost imagine that's the place he woke up from, right? That's the almost you could have picture it as the centre of the shrine where the Avatar was asleep, I guess, like resting, cooling, I suppose, and then just woken up. And as he wakes up, the ground kind of cracks and flames rupture from the ground, and kind of war calls once more, sort of thing.
It's nice.
Yeah, carry on, sorry.
It's nice as well, just looking at the different designs of the helmets and the heads, it suggests that maybe the cold iron statues that live at the heart of the craft world, for most of the time when they're not manifesting an avatar to go to war, they might have different designs of statue. We've only ever really seen one as if it's kind of mass produced, but that's not really the Eldari way. You would have thought there's lots of beautiful representations across the different craft worlds that maybe speak to the cultures of those craft worlds.
Definitely very interesting looking at this.
But yeah, that helmet that we see on the left-hand side and the bottom right, that's a very new design for the Eldari avatar in the 41st millennium particularly.
Yeah, it's usually the
excited to see that.
This
the
is
blood-dripping hand, that's a
classic.
Classic.
The bare head's definitely
we
new.
know that the avatars of Cain are basically like shards of the god, aren't they? Once he was shattered by the birth of Slanesh, so it may be that they all have slightly different temperaments, that they represent different aspects of the god. Who knows if they met each other? Would they get on? Probably not.
Some of them are burning and furious, and some of them are furious and burning.
That's true.
It just depends on the priority that they have. But yeah, here's the bloody-handed god, and that is the bloody hand that makes him the bloody-handed god. He used to just be the war god. He used to be Cain, but Kala Mencha Cain is bloody-handed god because of the slaying of Eldanesh, the first Eldari. And that is the curse that he bears, and it looks like he's not very happy about it altogether. So that's another.
Eldar definitely got mixed feelings about this guy.
Yeah, it's fair to say, but the Eldari have dealt with their problems in a lot of different ways, and that's something that we might
not
touch
always
on.
healthy ways.
Not really. No, we've seen a lot of how the Drakari deal with their problems: run away, hide in a labyrinth dimension, just pretend it's not happening, steal other people's souls. And the craft worlds have got their rigid path system, and it allows them every now and again to release the avatar, which is a pretty good trade-off for living trammeled lives of discipline.
I think we should
not
probably
that kind
move
of
on.
avatar, just
we've
the
talked about
avatar.
a lot. Let's have a look at
Different
this guy.
avatar.
So, Morgan Ra, the Phoenix Lord. What do we know about him, Wade?
So he was the Phoenix Lord of the Dark Reaper's Shrine when Asurian, the Eldari god, set about different ways of venerating Cain, the war god. There were different aspect disciplines, and this is the one who attacks more from range than any of the other aspect shrines. There's lots of different aspect shrines that venerate Cain as the war god in all sorts of different ways. Most of them get up close and personal, but Morgan Ra decided you could just do it from the other side of the battlefield with the Morgatar that he made, which is his ginormous shuriken shrieker cannon. Fires plate-sized shuriken. I've always liked that particular description of them. When it hits you with something the size of a plate, and then you explode, which is pretty decent. He's still got that wicked scythe end to
He's still
going to
make a mess of you in combat. Like
Absolutely.
If you're anything short of a Space Marine Chapter Master, he's probably still going to carve you in half, isn't he?
I'd reckon so, yeah. He's done that to a fair few people altogether. He was from the craft world Altansar, which was dragged into the Eye of Terror shortly after the fall of the Eldari and the birth of Slanesh that you mentioned earlier, and we've recently seen Altansar has returned to the galaxy. He had been for a long time the only Eldari of Altansar rocking around, being quite grim and morbid. It's good to see another manifestation of death incarnate in the 41st millennium. We don't have enough of those.
Yeah, I think Eldar very much proven that the Imperium doesn't have the monopoly on skulls in Warhammer 40,000. Interesting in a bunch of other ways as well. So, like, this is a much more ragged look than almost everything else in the Craft World range. Most of your Eldar miniatures have got a very clean aesthetic where the they obviously the cloaks are in good nick generally. That their armor is relatively kind of clean and sort of sci-fi looking. This is a much grimmer, darker look than most of what we've seen, but slightly reminiscent to some extent of the Harlequin Reaper of kind of a similar sort of aspect, I suppose.
Yeah, and I guess as he's not been able to go home for thousands of years, Zeltansar got dragged into hell, essentially. Well,
yeah, I suppose your dry cleaners on the craft world, isn't it? So they can't look after your cloak very well.
And as is tradition, beautifully painted. Just looking at the different shades of black represented, that's definitely the colour of the Dark Reaper's shrine. And we saw the beautiful Dark Reaper's miniatures. They've been revealed earlier
very
on.
Cool, they're on the way too.
So getting to see their boss, as we saw Jane Zar released alongside the Howling Banshees. We're going to see Morgan Ra.
Warhammer hobby is basically three hobbies rolled into
those
one.
Kind of purple
you've got collecting,
tones
you've got painting,
the
you've got playing.
And the very cool, neutral, matte tones in the Morgatar itself.
From a lore perspective as well, he's got some interesting kind of connectivity to some of the old Necron lore as well, in terms of the origins of the aspect of the Reaper in the Blood God Cain has got some. Feel free to go read up on it if you've got access to your Eldar and Necron codexes. But there's some interesting kind of connective tissue there in terms of where the aspect of death comes from in Eldar culture, which I thought was quite fun. If you're also into your Eldar lore, which I am, so it's some good stuff there in terms of some light reading.
Light reading, not before bed, into your very, very ancient reading. History. It looks like he's got a few spirit stones on his back. He's been picking up from fallen friends, and now more plastic aspect warriors, the Shining Spears. Which people will be delighted to see, I'm sure. They are beautiful and clean, aren't they?
They are a long time coming, I think, for Shining Spears. So these guys have been represented in the range for a little while in a mix of metal and plastic, and then resin and plastic. But we've never had a full plastic kit for these before, and they've still been using the kind of classic jet bike look. But they got updated with a brand new style of jet bike. So people who are familiar with the Eldar range at the moment will see that their jet bike is a little bit fancier in a variety of ways than the standard one. You've got like a little lance holder on the side there to kind of prop your lance on as you charge. It's got a few extra little features and things that are reminiscent of some of the
the little goldie bit there.
Some of the Harlequin ones where they've got that little kind of targeting computer thing that kind of comes up and lets them drive around. And then the warriors themselves are obviously in aspect armor, and they've got those headdresses which we haven't seen before. That's like a new aesthetic for the Shining Spears. They previously just had your kind of classic Eldar pointy head, but and the spears themselves are pretty cool. They're kind of reminiscent of the some of the Eldar heavy weaponry to some extent, like the missile launchers and stuff. And then the Star Lance you can see on the Exarch there is very cool. Looks like a kind of weaponized lance version of a prism cannon, which is pretty fun. So lots to like there.
Laser lances, they're very much the kind of knightly aesthetic in the Eldari style, and I like thinking that essentially everything that human culture has gone through its history. Eldari did that first. They've got lots of legends
which shoot lasers.
Mounted knights riding around jousting, but as is the Eldari way, they don't just use crude pointy sticks. They've got like focusing crystals with lasers at the end of their pointy sticks that they used to stab people with when they charge in.
Like, we've got laser tech. Should we make a gun out of it? No, that's very primitive. Let's make it into a lance. And then ride at people on a jet bike.
Absolutely, the fusion of these things.
Just because we no longer have horses and we've invented laser technology doesn't mean we can't go jousting.
No, we should remember our roots. Excited to imagine the sort of Autarch Skyrunner conversions that might come out of these beautiful miniatures, those plastic Autarch kits that we've seen released as well. There's lots of cool mixing and matching opportunities in there.
A lot of potential for fans of jet bikes generally across this Eldar release, because you've also got those new Ranger jet bikes, the Shroud Runners. So that combined with your, we've already got characters for the Warlocks and for Farseers, and we've got the jet bikes, and now we've got these guys, and we've got your Shroud Runners. So you can imagine some pretty cool looking armies of Eldari that are kind of all on jet bikes as Samhayan based lists, or even make up your own craft world and fill them full of jet bikes. Very fast, and obviously Eldar jet bikes are very good in game as well. They're very maneuverable. These guys are going to hit pretty hard, kick people off objectives. So in game terms, this is a really handy little unit. And actually, even though they haven't had new models for a very long time, we've still seen Shining Spears pop up in lots of Eldar armies because they're just really good, right? So if you want to be fast and hitty, you haven't got much better than a Shining Spear. No.
And they do represent, and the colours kind of tell it all, but they represent a very different take on aspects of Cain to the Dark Reapers, who are very grim and moody. And
they're sort of a literal opposite, aren't they?
Pretty much,
You like black, they like white. You like standing still and shooting far away. I like going fast and stabbing people in the face.
You've got the whole spectrum covered. So to go with the plastic Howling Banshees that are already out there in the world, the plastic Crimson Exarchs, of course, they're Aspect Warriors as well. Got more and more plastic Eldari Aspect Warriors coming along.
Good.
Excellent stuff altogether.
For the longest time, they were
mentioned,
only
there is a
available in metal.
huge range of Eldari miniatures.
And the
That
Shroud Runners they
avatar
were
of Cain
mentioning are
at
these
the
guys.
centre.
You get a sense of how big he is there. So we had quite a lot of speculation yesterday about like how big is the Avatar of Cain?
He's that big.
Yeah, he's that big. If you remember the previous version, he'd stood maybe half again as tall as a Space Marine. This guy is considerably larger. He's about 3 times the height of a Space Marine in battle. So he stands toe to toe with things like Greater Demons and Catan Shards and all the kind of the big stuff you'd want him to be fighting in cool epic showdowns. So almost this guy's kind of reason for being is to find the biggest, coolest thing in the enemy army and challenge it to a fight to the death at the middle of the battlefield. So, you know, if they've got a Keeper of Secrets or a Bloodthirster or a Catan Shard or something big and cool and scary, he's usually got historic beef with almost every big major thing in 40k to some capacity. So, he's going to cook that beef, as it is.
And make all of the Eldari around him much
Be'lakor, there's a good
angrier.
shout there, someone in the chat.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be a good fight.
Absolutely.
Oh, God.
Do you have a preferred Eldari craft world? Are you thinking of getting into the craft worlds or the Eldari
So I
yourself?
like Sam Hyan a lot.
Ooh,
I think red armies look pretty sweet.
That's very true.
So I like the look of them. They all look pretty good though. I think the Eldar color palettes have stood the test of time pretty well. So that they're all pretty great looking. But I think there's something about red armies on a battlefield that just looks great.
Your
I'm a
orc
sucker
is
for
showing.
red and black armies in the main in particular, but I've got a bit of a yen for an Ulfway force. I'm eyeing up some of those Storm Guardians. The Storm Guardians kit is beautiful as well, isn't it?
That'd be
It's
these
very
guys.
very cool. I think I didn't know that I wanted new Guardians until I saw them, and then I was like, yeah, all right, you go on.
Yeah, it's difficult to improve on Jez Goodwin classics altogether. Remember those plastic multi-part Guardians when they came out in like 1999? But seeing the extra details.
That's
and
how long
the
it's been since
dynamism
before those
of
Guardians have got an
particular
update.
sculpts and yeah, the anger in the faces, the
For the last
detail
2
captured in
decades,
those beautiful Eldari faces.
they have not
I
been
think there's
updated.
An awful lot of attention paid to the quality altogether. We've also seen new Warlocks as well, plastic Warlocks, which have managed to cast a glamour spell and make them disappear from this particular picture. But loads of Eldari stuff on the way, and this isn't even all of it. We might even have some more
Well,
stuff.
some more
to tease
stuff. Who
later
knows?
on.
Who knows?
We've already heard
That's
about.
most of it. We've seen most
It's
of it.
most
now.
of
We've
it.
seen
It's most of it. They only show what they want us to see at any point in time. People chiming in now with their favourite craft worlds altogether. Gravy Lollin saying Iamden is the best craft worlds. There's lots of different ways of dealing with your
Tyranids
problems.
would certainly agree that that's the tastiest.
They're the
one.
tastiest craft world altogether, potentially, yeah. Yeah, I'm a big fan of that Eldari release. I'm looking forward to seeing what else might come in the fullness of time. So that's a fine way to kick us off.
That's pretty cool. Pretty
Excellent 40k
New
release.
plastic aspect warriors and new Phoenix Lords. Not too shabby.
That's
Yeah, we're about
also maybe
halfway
something
through
that we
now.
saw teased in what we might look forward to in 2022's releases. I think some people were seeing some of those scrappy bits of robe and bow.
Yeah,
and some
I'm guessing.
people maybe that was
Some
all
people
right.
maybe suspected he was on his way.
Yeah. So if you've got your bingo card from the kind of previews teased earlier on in the year, you might want to keep that handy as we go through the rest of today's reveals. So that started us off. Should we move on to
I think
the
let's-
next video? Raph.
Alright, who's up next?
None may
Ah.
steal from the god of death. For too long, the elves have denied Nagash his due. It ends now.
Uh-oh.
Our souls belong to us. Who will take them from our stronghold of Huronka? A host of tortured spirits in service to a mad god?
No walls bar our way. With my craven throne guard by my side, I shall have victory.
Craven by name, craven by nature. They will fall to my Heartrender's javelins.
That is not the ending that is written this day. High Gladiatrix.
The scratching of your quill means naught, Scripta Mortis. The only souls returning to Shaiish will be yours.
Ooh, loving this. Okay, that model's getting nicked.
An eternity of torment awaits you, elf. We are coming.
Excellent. So Warhammer Age of Sigmar Battle Box Arena of Shades. What did we see in there, Eddie?
So this is a brand new battle box for Warhammer Age of Sigmar, Arena of Shades. This is the Nighthaunt versus the Daughters of Cain. Cain is having a pretty good day today.
Absolutely
he's very active, you know. He's up to stuff in the 41st Millennium, and he's got his warriors, or possibly someone else's warriors, working under his name, fighting for him in the Mortal Realms. This is a new battle box with some new heroes, a new unit for Nighthaunt, which is very exciting.
I do
and
have
loads
other
of
stuff
in there
in
as
the
well.
line.
So this heralds an exciting time for both those two armies. But some really very cool miniatures on the way. So, like a lot of our other battle boxes, this is a chance to get hold of some new minis first, which will have a larger release later on, but also a great chance to start either of those two armies. So, if you fancy yourself some ghosts or some cool bloodthirsty warrior gladiatrixes, this is a pretty good place to start. And if you've got a friend who likes the other half of it, there's pretty much it's perfection. Absolutely. So, shall we have a look at some of these models up close? This guy is like just an amazing miniature. Very, very interesting, different
balancing on that
kind
is,
of
good
not a warrior certainly, but a very characterful, interesting miniature. All sorts of stuff to talk about there. Wade, where do you want to start?
The number of arms that he's been blessed with for the task at hand. There you go. It's a gorgeous figure. We were looking at that in the office the other day as we were drooling over it. So this Scriptum Mortis, I was looking at the background in the box as well. This is someone that Nagash has cursed for the crime of telling inconvenient truths, such as how Nagash was imprisoned under a cairn of Realmstone. Sigmar was the one that freed him. Nagash doesn't like people hearing these inconvenient truths, so has cursed these scribes from a former life to have to record the names of all of those who have wronged him and done transgressions. So you can see that Nagash has blessed this accursed figure.
Yeah, Nagash does not like people kind of pointing out when he screws up.
He's going to be a kind of writer and editor for all of time.
He likes to take himself as judge, jury, and executioner of the dead soul, the damned souls.
With the tools that you need to do the job.
Any souls that come into
the
his
lanterns
domain.
and candles. He's got an abundance
He's well
of
lit.
He's lit.
He's well lit. He's got like a candle coming out of what looks like his spine, which I suppose is fine. He's got a little lantern there as well, which is some kind of weird green ghostly vapor. You can imagine this guy kind of appearing out of the misks in Shaiish somewhere, can't you? And looking absolutely terrifying. What he's writing down there is basically the names of all the people that Nagash are on Nagash's naughty list, basically.
Yes.
So in game terms, the way that this guy works is that you pick an enemy hero, and
filigree. I don't know if
you
that's
are being
a
added to
transfer
Nagash's
or
naughty list right now, and then the God of Death will pay close attention to your battle and basically curse that enemy hero, which has got some quite fun in-game mechanics. So you want to get rid of this guy early on if you're up against him, but obviously he's going to be, you can see, not a warrior necessarily, but able to defend himself. He's got sort of also kind of spectral defences, so he's going to kind of hide at the back of the
I cannot do that. Fine,
basically just write down his to-do list of enemy heroes to kill.
He's got to write down the full name and the particular underworld that you're going to be sent to for the
He's got some paperwork to fill out.
Yes,
basically.
so that gives you the time to hit him with a hammer or whatever your
in
preferred
context,
method of
that
stopping
is
ghosts
probably
is
about
before your fate is meted out to you.
Yay, bye.
The lectern's very cool there as well. I think lots of the death stuff in the Mortal Realms has got some really interesting aesthetics, basically like built out of bits of bone and spectral stuff, and we're seeing that again here. So
give or take that, it's about that big.
The lectern there is a little bit Ossiarch to some extent. You've got kind of bits of bone reforged. So Nagash is obviously the god of all of death. He's got ability to kind of call from all those various powers, and there's lots of stuff on the top of the miniature, like the candles there that hark back to some of the wider things in the Nighthaunt range, like the black coach and things. So it looks going to fit right in, but looks like it could be quite a fun project for painters as well. I think.
Absolutely. I've seen some appreciation in the chat for the liver spots on the back, which is an extra quality of grimness altogether.
You would have thought that once you kind of went beyond the mortal coil and no longer had skin, that liver spots would no longer be an issue. But no. Nagash has decided to bring that with you.
This is the curse. And a brand new unit for the Nighthaunt army in the Craven Throne Guard, which we can see are armed with crossbows. It's a shooting unit for a death army.
Yeah, so this is really interesting for a death army in Age of Sigmar, because generally speaking, there's a lot of things going for death armies. They're usually pretty durable, they hit pretty hard, they've got lots of magic and cool stuff, but one of the things they haven't really been able to do is compete much in the shooting phase. They've got a few things that kind of scream at people, but it's not quite the same thing as having like a dedicated unit that's got some,
a couple of catapults,
some firepower.
maybe,
so these guys add a really interesting thing into the mix. So in game terms first, I guess, they give you a shooting unit, which is something that almost no death unit has access to. They are part of Valentis's guard, basically, so I think that's the right...
Kurdos Valentian.
Valentine, that's right.
King.
That's the fella, the Craven King. So these are his kind of spectral guard, and you can see the banner there has got some kind of nods to that as well. That kind of fits in quite nicely with his aesthetic. And you can imagine these guys kind of cruel, kind of cackling warriors that kind of cut down enemy at a distance, sort of thing, in that kind of slightly spiteful way that all Nighthaunt, none of them fight fair. Basically, they all kind of fight and laugh at you as they do it.
And they're probably doing part of Kurdos Valentian's curse, where those around him are kind of tongue-in-cheek or passive-aggressively supporting him, and not really actually supporting him.
Doing a great job, boss.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, you managed to drive off that one grot. Well done, you're brilliant. We can see that pointing character second in from the left. Looks like he's either pointing at other death units because you haven't got a crossbow and we do, or maybe he's just pointing at whoever's going to get shot down by the Soul Hunter crossbows next.
The miniatures are very fun as well. They've got like a really interesting kind of hunched aesthetic.
Yeah.
So they look like guard, don't they? You can imagine them like patrolling a battlement somewhere in the realm of death. And they've got that kind of hunched over, brutish sort of look to them, which is quite an interesting aesthetic for a Nighthaunt, which are usually quite spindly, I suppose.
Yeah, and an interesting kind of bodyguard dynamic, because a lot of the times the bodyguards for generals or leader characters are better fighters, so that you have to fight your way through that shield wall or battle line, but just to have ghosts, crossbowmen guarding the Craven King. Like, nope, you're not getting anywhere near that floating king with his
You've got
big
plenty
mace.
of other things that have got big massive swords and scythes and stuff in the Nighthaunt army. This is a niche they didn't have, which is nicely filled.
But tell you who does like fighting stuff up close, and that is the Daughters of Cain, and their new hero choice, the High Gladiatrix, which has got an abundance of weapon and equipment choices.
Yeah, so
That's a lovely
hero
model.
level character for the Daughters of Cain. This is from the gladiatorial pits of the Daughters of Cain. Lots of people in Age of Sigmar like gladiatorial pits.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of the most popular sports probably in the Mortal Realms. But the Daughters of Cain do it best, and this character does it best of all. You can see there's a few options in the kits. You've got the kind of bare head and knife option on the right, on the left there, and you've also got the helmeted and spear option on the right. I like the helmet a lot on this one. It's quite kind of fun. Minimalist sort of armour to let this person be nice and fast and agile, but a cool pose standing on that rock with the kind of whip circling.
It's a gorgeous pose, isn't it? Both the hero models are very strong contenders early contenders for Hero Miniature of the Year, I'd say, for the Warhammer Age of Sigmar side of things. Beautiful details in them. And the story, I was looking through why are these new characters being introduced in fighting? As you say, the fighting pits, this is all based around the story that we heard about in the Broken Realms series of books that led up to the newest edition of Warhammer Age of Sigmar, where Morathi kind of turned Anvilgard into Harkieron for her own purposes and filled it full of gladiatorial fighting pits, and they sent souls to the Ideneth allies that allowed them to do that. Opportunity to do
you're
so.
on his shit
That's the full box set.
forever.
There you can see there's loads of stuff in that box. A lot of the units you'd want to have in either of those armies. So whether you're starting those armies from scratch with this box, or you're deciding to expand armies that already exist, this is a great little way to do either. So very, very cool little set.
You die, you stay dead, as far as
Zoologist
Nagash
in
is
the chat
concerned.
says, "Rad, my partner and I could paint these together. She loves the Nighthaunt." That is like the beautiful goal of these sorts of battle boxes, isn't it? If you've got someone else in your life who has an interest in one of those forces, while you've got more of an interest in the other one, get them painted.
Or
Play
like
some
Nagash,
games.
you can selfishly keep all the souls for yourself and just start 2 armies. That's also fine.
And I know Chris Peach was eyeing up that High Gladiatrix. Like, that wouldn't take too much to turn that into a Drakari succubus and do some 40k things with it as well. Always got an eye out for converting cool things and turning them into other things that we hadn't
I
considered
think that's
possible.
one of the nice things about the Elf and the Eldari ranges generally, is there's a lot of flexibility between the kits. So we were talking a bit before about some of the new Eldari miniatures having some flexibility and like head swappability with various different bits. There's a lot of multi-part stuff in there. So, were you so inclined, you could build, like you talked about doing an Autarch and a jet bike out of those new Shining Spears. You could mix up some cool heads. Lots of the elven stuff is nice and interchangeable, which is really fun. So if you like doing a bit of mix and match kit bash hobby, there's plenty of opportunities.
Well, that High Gladiatrix includes a spare weapon and a spare head for that sort of purpose. So once you've built your High Gladiatrix for your Warhammer Age of Sigmar games, you've got some spare bits that you might want to introduce to your kind of Elven Eldari bits ecosystem and see what else can be created from it. Excellent stuff.
So this next thing we've got, Wade, I know you're particularly excited about.
A little bit, yeah. We can
I think we can go. I think we can do it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Alright, what do we have here? Oh, God. No wonder Wade's interested in this one. Oh, Kabanda! A greater demon of Khorne. The chaos god of blood and war. Oh, that is a gorgeous model. Horus Heresy, aka 30k.
So, Wade, I know you are a fan of all things red with axes. So, who is this guy? What do we just see?
This is Kabanda, one of the finest and greatest bloodthirsters, greater demons of Khorne, to bedevil any realm that's got Warhammer associated with it. So you can see here this being presented for the Horus Heresy as the demon general of Khorne. In the Horus Heresy setting, we saw this particular chap at Cygnus Prime, tangling with Sanguinius, when Sanguinius was sent, along with pretty much his entire legion, by Horus to get him out of the way while Horus went about doing his heresy. Found a huge amount of demons at Cygnus Prime, and Kabanda tussled with Sanguinius, and Kabanda cast Sanguinius down. And the entire Blood Angels Legion essentially said, "Leave Sanguinius alone," and got very, very angry altogether. But that was not the only time that we've seen or heard about Kabanda in the Horus Heresy. He's described as the one who then tussled again with... Tussled is not really the most...
I think you're underselling what is one of the most epic fights of all history.
Dueled, encountered. Kabanda and Sanguinius fought once more during the Siege of Terror. According to some of the older background, they fought atop the Ultimate Gate, and at that point, Sanguinius broke the Bloodthirster's back over his knee and cast him down. They're 1-1.
1-1.
But then, it didn't end too well for Sanguinius. Spoiler alert, if you're new to Warhammer 40,000, he's not rocking around so much in the 41st millennium. But Kabanda's been there. Kabanda's been bedeviling the Blood Angels in the 41st millennium, all the way up through to the events of the devastation of Baal, tussled with the Sanguinor before that. He was also under Archaon's command during the End Times, as we're starting to see the End Times lore books being added to the Warhammer Vault. We're on Glotkin, I think, at the moment. A few more books to go before we see Kabanda materialise there. He's been everywhere. He's cut the heads off all sorts of things and smashed up Blood Angels, Leviathan, Dreadnoughts on the base of this beast by the looks of things. So to see him revealed in a Forge World Horus Heresy miniature,
he is a
I think
model.
it's the Horus Heresy model everyone wants to see, really, isn't it? Right? Is that just me? It's not just
Certainly you would.
Yeah.
I think just a really, really cool Bloodthirster model as well, isn't it? So this is obviously designed to be a Horus Heresy miniature, and you can see on the base there you've got Horus Heresy era armor and Leviathan Dreadnoughts and stuff. But it wouldn't take much at all to take this guy and go, actually, I want to use him in my Warhammer 40,000 army.
Or
use him
in
as
Age
is,
of
really,
Sigmar.
and drop him in as a Bloodthirster or Exalted Bloodthirster. And in Age of Sigmar as well, you could definitely just drop this guy in and use him too. One of the nice things about the nice things, I suppose. One of the nice things about the demons of chaos is that they can manifest in any realm, in any space where chaos has influence. So even if this guy's origin and his main stomping ground is the Horus Heresy, he certainly shows up all over. And I think most recently he's been chopping up Tyranids, hasn't he, in the 41st millennium?
Yes, just as it looked particularly bleak during the events of the devastation of Baal, and High Fleet Leviathan was closing in on all the Blood Angels and their successors, and then they kind of disappeared in the Warp Storm.
Well, I think Kabanda's very keen for a decider fight, right? So like it's 1-1 as far as he's concerned with the Blood Angels, and he doesn't want anyone else to ruin
wants
the fight.
the Blood Angels for
leave
himself.
So huge pile
So
of
anything
bones
comes
and skulls
near
left
that
on
looks like
Baal
it's about to
Prime
wipe them out,
in the
he
image
goes,
of the rune of
no,
Kabanda.
that's my toy.
It's
Boom.
absolutely magnificent, and that tiny little, ginormous 8-foot tall Space Marine superhuman killing machine, but quite small on the base for scale. And it doesn't look like he's been bisected by the axe, but just like hit by one of the spikes on the back of the axe or across the whip that Kabanda's got, potentially, to leave those jagged
we were
holes
saying
in.
that looking at the size of that axe, which is about twice the size of a Space Marine, if you were hit with that, you would be in more trouble than that Space Marine appears to be in.
Yeah, I think the rest of that Space Marine squad exists as a fine mist just surrounding the knees of Kabanda at this point in time. But yeah, any sort of rules for Exalted Bloodthirsters that you might really have. He looks like he's pretty much on the same sort of size and power level as Angrath the Unbound.
So one of the things we know about the Chaos Gods is that their favour is fickle, right? So the various different Bloodthirsters of Khorne will at different times kind of rise to prominence and favour. Famously, of course, Skarbrand was the favourite at one point and was cast down by Khorne in a bit of a tantrum, let's say. And at various times you've had different Bloodthirsters, different Exalted Bloodthirsters have been the favourite, and certainly you'd expect at times this guy would have been the primary favourite of Khorne throughout the various ages. But you can decide, I guess. Maybe you can take him in your army and earn skulls for the Skull Throne and rise his favour in the eyes of Khorne.
Khorne loves that. It would also be nice to see him facing off against that new avatar of Cain.
Wouldn't it, though?
That would be good, wouldn't it?
I remember the first time that the Avatar shows up in the Dawn of War games. I seem to remember that the mission was you had to get the Avatar to go and fight a Bloodthirster, and that was the fight. I think the Bloodthirster won that fight.
Was that game written by Khorne?
It might have been.
Engineer that fight. But yeah, the kind of rune on the headdress of the Avatar looks like a kind of Eldari rendition. Of, like, if we're going to redesign and get Khorne a nice rebranding and do it by the Eldari, do it that way. But this is truly a proper greater demon of the war god of humanity and all other sensible mortal things, not the war god of the Eldari.
A couple of folks in the chat there asking, is it plastic or resin? This is one of the Horus Heresy character miniature series, so this is a resin miniature in highly detailed Forge World resin. So it'll be available from the Forge World web store and alongside the rest of the character miniatures like the Primarch. So
probably for about
if you built one of the Primarch models up, it's the same stuff that they're made of.
Excellent stuff. I think I need this in my life altogether, with an honour guard of
the Forge World models
lesser plastic bloodthirsters around it, looking up to him.
Do we have 8 bloodthirsters yet? We probably there's 3 different ones, and then you've got a couple of there's a few in resin now, and then there's Scarborough. So you're not far off being able to collect a full unit of 8.
And that's just the start.
That feels like you were looking for a hobby project, Wade. Maybe that's
it. A new year, new collection of bloodthirsters. That's maybe we can get that up and running. Good stuff. So a wonderful demon general of Khorne for the Horus Heresy, Kabanda, his own self. I'm absolutely delighted by the sight of this. This has been in the ether. Demons have been whispering about this one to me for a little while. It was beautiful to see it revealed. Lovely stuff. Should we move on?
Let's.
Right then. So into something slightly different next up.
All right, who do we have up? What do we have up next? Oh, I think this is for the their animated stuff, I think. Ah, okay. Yeah, this is for their Warhammer animated stuff. Yeah, Warhammer Plus, yeah.
So that is the title sequence for Interrogator, which is one of the Warhammer animations that will be coming to Warhammer Plus very soon, by the looks of things. Spring 2022. It's not far away at all, is it?
No, it's not far away. So this is the animation that's on its way after the Exodite, which we know is just around the corner. So there's a couple of cool things that are worth calling out about the Interrogator. So this is a new animation. It's based on a kind of film noir-esque sort of style. And it's very much an animation that you probably don't want to watch with the kids because there's some fairly mature themes going on in this. So there's ideas. It's very grim. It's very dark. This is very much a show for people who maybe enjoyed the Warhammer horror series or like the kind of grimmer, grittier, darker corners of Warhammer 40,000 lore. Some of the kind
basically
of
think
Inquisition,
Sin City
shady back alley
Judge
stuff that
Dredd.
goes on. There's also some themes in there of
basically
addiction,
what
dealing
this
with,
looks like it's going to
some
be.
fairly harrowing stuff.
Yep.
But if you're into that sort of stuff and you like your grim darkness
for a bit as well,
of the far future, there's a lot of things to enjoy.
Throw in Starship Troopers into the mix as well.
Some of the themes kind of represented in that title sequence.
Blade Runner, Starship Troopers,
some fairly disturbing imagery altogether,
City,
and some
Judge
more
Dredd.
adult themes.
Blend all them together.
And the title itself, Interrogator, kind of lets you know this is sort of
Alien
feet of clay
movies.
sort of level. This is not all-powerful
Predator.
Lord Inquisitor sort of
Blend all
character.
them
This
together
is
and
an Inquisitor in
basically
training. That's what
Warhammer
Interrogator
40K.
is. You can see that inquisitorial eye in the logo. It's a very nice little touch. So someone who's maybe not quite like us necessarily, but someone a bit more relatable than some of the more godlike characters of the 40th.
It's a very human level story, this one. So it's not going to be about like the great sweeping battlefields and epic fights, or like gods versus monsters sort of level stuff. But you're going to see that even in the relative civility of an Imperial hive world, there are still all sorts of unpleasant ways to meet your end, and plenty of grim darkness in every shadow.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, the kind of Warhammer horror and Warhammer crime series, we saw the development of Varangantua, the setting for all of the Warhammer crime stuff. This is not that, but an opportunity to look at another realised, detailed setting in the same sort of way, building on the strength of Necromunda and Varangantua, an opportunity to look at life in a very different sort of Imperial world, that sort of connective tissue that exists outside the tabletop war games and the battles that we're more used to. But yeah, a few different images to check out.
Yeah, and like Angels of Death, this is going to be a fairly long-running series. So I think I've certainly been enjoying Hammer and Bolter, but that gives you a little kind of 20-minute bites of Warhammer 40,000 goodness. But this is going to be a longer series where we see...
He's falling. Truth. Things to talk about. We talked about Kill Team is going to be getting some new reveals.
Let's look at Kill Team.
Let's look at Kill Team.
Kill Team is sort of the kind of smaller scales.
What's
games.
cooler than pirates? We all know these booty-loving buccaneers, the terrors of the high seas, are the ultimate in cool. But what happens if you use a complex scientific method to combine them with other things that are just as cool? Well, we at Games Workshop believe the results speak for themselves.
What the hell? Oh god. Corsairs.
So we said there was going to be more Eldari to reveal, and there are indeed. That is a new Eldari Corsair for Kill Team Necromunda.
Yeah, so Corsairs have been a part of Eldar lore for pretty much since there's been Eldari or Eldar of any sort. What we know about them basically is these are the kind of pirate class of the Eldari. They don't necessarily fit neatly into one of the buckets as we understand as the major factions of Eldar, so that they're not Drukhari, they're not Craftworld Eldar, they're not Rangers, they're not Exodites. These are a pirate subclass of the Eldar that pull from all those different aspects. And you can see on the miniature that we can have a look at here, it's got nods to several of those different spaces. So you can see some of the visual aesthetics and keys of the Craftworld, also some nods to some of the Drukhari origins as well. So if you look at that sword, very reminiscent of some of the swords we've seen in the Drukhari range, but also with like a little spirit stone in there as well. So it's kind of like crossing the streams a little bit there. But one of the interesting things about the Corsairs is if you look at the Eldar range generally, they tend to be very uniform. So you look at the Craftworld and they're all very, everything is in the same colour palette, they're all uniform, everyone's got the same equipment. Corsairs are the complete opposite end of that. So every single character in this is completely unique and individual. They've got their own kit. Every single member of the team is kitted out very differently, which obviously lends itself very well to Kill Team, where we see all sorts of varieties of different abilities and kits in the same way that we did with things like the Commandos and the Death Corps of Krieg. You can see this is just one model from the Kill Team represented at the moment, but you can extrapolate that out in your mind and kind of think about all the various different ways that an Eldar pirate could be represented. But yeah, very cool miniature.
We've got the eye patch. It's a good piratical representation.
Gotta have an eye patch. Yeah. Are you even if you don't have someone in your crew who has an eye patch, can you even pirate? And the answer is no.
No, it's just a no.
Does that mean we're going to see an Eldari peg leg then?
Even though they're not, as you say, they're not living the life, the trammelled life of the path-following Craftworlders or the absolute decadence of the Comorites, they still are at risk of having Slaanesh consume their souls if they die out in the traversing the void.
Oh yeah, Slaanesh doesn't mind. He's quite happy to have his souls rum-flavoured.
Yeah. And yeah, as you say, this is something that we've kind of heard of as part of the periphery of the background of Warhammer 40,000 for an awfully long time, and we've concentrated on the Craftworlders and the Drukhari, but the Outcasts have always been out there doing their piratical thing. Prince Uriel, he's been a famous, went out on his Gap Millennium and spent some time with his Eldritch Raiders, and there's been a few famous formations. I think
Yvrain as well was a Corsair briefly as well. So there's lots of kind of nods and things to other bits of Eldar lore, and we've seen a little bit about them. So the cloaks are quite interesting, I suppose, we're talking about. So you've seen that on Yvrain's got kind of a little bit of kind of Corsairness about her. But you can see this is the artwork here of the Corsair, and you can see Kill Team Necromunda. So we can confirm that the next Kill Team will kind of perhaps unsurprisingly be set in the new seasonal setting for Warhammer 40,000, which is the Necromunda Gauntlet, where the Corsairs will form half of an upcoming box set up against as yet to be defined opponent.
Why, an opponent as yet to be revealed. Fantastic. Well, we'll look forward to finding out more about that.
Probably Chaos.
As I say, that's the new season for Warhammer 40,000, so seeing the Kill Team releases featuring as part of that wider meta story, you can get your Necromunda fix as we go back to Necromunda Vigilus alone. up for pre-order this weekend, I think, and then you can get your kill team fix in the Necromunda Warzone with these excellent new Eldari Corsairs. As you mentioned, the Commandos, we saw those Commandos released as part of Kill Team, but they also featured in the Orc Codex, all of those options represented. Is it fair to expect that we'll see these Corsairs?
Yeah, so you can absolutely use these guys in Warhammer 40,000 as well, and because they sit in the kind of juxtaposition between the Drakari and the Craftworlders, you can use them alongside either, so they quite happily turn up and offer their services for loot and doubloons, I'd imagine. Whatever space doubloons look like, these guys will take them from your Craftworlders or your Drakari, and they kind of fill a neat little kind of multi-purpose niche in your army there as well. So we'll find out more about the Corsair, Void Guard, the rest of this kill team very soon, but there's some really cool stuff on the way. But I think today we can confirm Corsairs are coming. They're going to be coming for kill team. Loads of options. This guy has an eye patch and a parrot, and is a pirate, and a ninja, and he's an alien, and he's in space. What more could you want?
That is the intersection that everyone was looking for, I think. Yeah, people are always looking for more pirate-flavoured things in their Warhammer releases, and that is the Eldari Corsairs for the upcoming Kill Team release. Superb stuff. So that's Kill Team ticked off. Delighted to see that. Should we move on to the...
Let's move on.
So we've had 40k, Age of Sigmar, Horus Heresy, Warhammer Plus, Kill Team...
On Necromunda, they say Lord Helmar sees everything. But in the Ash Wastes, we know that's a lie.
That can be good.
The Wastes decide who lives and dies. Not Helmar, not the houses. Everyone. For themselves.
Hello. There's a new faction arriving.
So that was pretty exciting altogether. New Necromunda reveal. Ash Wastes. Necromunda Ash Wastes. Leave the hive behind. Go outside. What could be damaging about going outside the hive? It's probably fine, isn't it? It's probably fine.
It's not fine. It's not fine. So this is Necromunda Ash Wastes. So this is an absolutely huge thing for Necromunda for the setting. Since we've been in Necromunda, basically we haven't stepped foot outside of the hive, and we know all about the hive. The hive is all kind of multi-leveled monstrosity of mechanisms and gantries and
if you're familiar with the
mega
cities
horrible
in
stuff, and it's an
Judge Dredd,
absolutely hellish place to live. But you've basically been
but
living on easy
on a
mode
much
for the
larger
past few
scale.
years, living inside
That
the
is
hive,
one
because
hive.
outside of the hive things get really
Basically, you can
serious.
see them from
the Ash
orbit.
Wastes
They reach
is the
orbit.
name of the kind of vast
You can see them from
expanse
orbit.
of wasteland that it is between the hives of Necromunda, between Hive Primus and the various other subsidiary hives that kind of sprawl across the great world of Necromunda. And this new expansion for Necromunda, this great new kind of setting for Necromunda, is set in the Ash Wastes, where your gangs basically have to step out of the hive and make the incredibly perilous journey across the wastes. Why would they do that? Basically, they've been paid, which is pretty much why you do everything in Necromunda. So the various different organizations, planetary governors, different industries of Necromunda need materials, people, goods, services moved from one place to another across the various Ash Wastes. They need to put them in great big armoured convoys that move across the Ash Wastes. Your gang's job is to protect these convoys from all sorts of horrors that might be out there in the wastes. And there are all sorts of horrors out there in the wastes. The air itself is toxic in various horrible ways. There are pools of horrible sludge and stuff that you can fall into and be dissolved by. There are all sorts of horrible creatures that have kind of grown fat and awful and horrible on radiation from the hive of thousands of years of Imperial rule, and there are people who already call the Ash Wastes home and aren't too happy about people riding big, great convoys through the middle of it. So the scene is set for a very exciting expansion.
I think Tatooine
commerce
mixed
is
with
the
Mad
lifeblood
Max.
of Necromunda, isn't it? They don't make all of these things just for the good of their health. They do it because it's being moved around and sold. And it's maybe your civic duty as a ganger to occasionally go outside and help protect these convoys.
Yeah, I don't think they probably see it that way. They probably just like, if the pay is good, we'll do it. Yeah. And certainly if you've never been outside, the idea of seeing the sun on Necromunda probably sounds quite appealing for all of 5 seconds before you realise that you've been tricked and the outside of Necromunda is, infinitely worse than even the most awful of the various dives inside the city itself.
It's been really exciting seeing the development of this edition of Necromunda, because I remember the 1995 edition of Necromunda, we saw those gangs realised, and then I think in 1996 Outlanders came out and said, but this is the weirder stuff that was still in the hive, and we've had years looking at the development of the hives and the main gangs and the various hangers-on and ne'er-do-wells that exist within the hive. So to get a first sense of setting foot outside the hive after all these years, and to imagine the amount of work that could then go on into seeing more and more stuff realised that we've only really heard about in whispered rumours from madmen bursting their way in from outside the hive. It's exciting to look forward to the future of Necromunda.
There's a lot of interesting things this brings as well, because one of the main things about the Ash Wastes is you can't walk across it.
No.
So the Ash Wastes are vast. So even though you can see the hive in the distance from almost anywhere you are in the Ash Waste, there's always a hive somewhere, because the hives are so enormous. You could be 300 miles away from the hive and still see it on the horizon. You've got to get a vehicle, basically. So what Ash Waste opens up is the prospect of vehicular mayhem, effectively in the world of Necromunda, which is pretty cool and exciting, and obviously bodes well for some cool new miniatures. And you might even have seen some glimpses about what some of those miniatures might be in that trailer, which will be available to watch on the Warhammer Community website. If you want to go and pick it apart and try and decipher what might be on the way. We also saw a little bit of some of the things you might face in the Ash Waste in that trailer too. So feel free to speculate wildly, and I'm sure we'll find out much more about it very soon.
And as is the case with everything that we've revealed or announced for the first time today, more and more information will be revealed closer to the relevant times on the Warhammer Community website. This is not the place to announce when these things will be released. It's the place to be excited about the reveal and the release
hype,
of them.
as
Exactly
they say.
that. There's loads more stuff that we've already alluded to, hinted at, teased, suggested, shown, flat out said is coming, that will have to come first and foremost. And as is the case, you'll always find these things first on the Warhammer Community website. But yeah, Necromunda Ash Wastes to look forward to in the future for fans of Necromunda, fans of vehicular combat with the same degree of granularity that you get in the Necromunda skirmish game. Something to look forward to. Excellent stuff. That's all our reveals, isn't it?
That is. What was your favourite, do you think, Wade?
What was my favourite greater demon of a war god?
I think I know.
It was Cabanda, because he's enormous and he's wonderful, and I've liked him for years. But it is an exceptional
Wade
set of
is a
releases altogether.
serious
Shall we just
fanboy
run
for
through
anything
all of the lovely
Lord.
pictures, the refresh of what we've seen today
sure,
for anyone who's tuned in since we first kicked off at 6 a.m. an hour ago? So we had the reveal of all of the rest of the Eldari miniatures. Lovely stuff. Thanks, Raph.
So, that was the Las Vegas Open reveal with Warhammer preview online. Las Vegas Open. Yeah, a lot of interesting stuff going on for Warhammer coming up later on in the year, or early on in the year, depending on release dates and all that. Or at least for the first quarter, at least by the looks of things, and some teasers for stuff to come out later. But yeah. Looking forward to quite a few of these, mostly for kit bashing purposes. And yeah, should be interesting to see how this all turns out later on down the line. Obviously, I'm looking forward to seeing my Tau when they release. Today's Friday, so tomorrow they come out for the pre-orders. So they'll be released next week. Tomorrow's pre-order day. Next week is when a bunch of stuff actually gets released for Tau. So, with that all being said, JaffaArchfiend,